In the year 656, a single day of battle at Basra claimed over 20,000 Muslim lives. A catastrophic rupture in the body of the Ummah recorded by Ibn al-Athir in his definitive chronicle, Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh. How did Ali ibn Abi Talib, the man renowned for his unwavering faith and battlefield prowess, find himself standing opposite the mother of the believers, Aisha, in a war between Muslims? This was not a clash against the empires of Persia or Rome, but a fratricidal calamity that would define the most agonizing test of his caliphate. The stakes could not have been higher. Following the shocking assassination of the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, the Islamic State teetered on the brink of anarchy. Medina was in turmoil, with the rebels holding the capital. The survival of the nascent Muslim polity itself was at risk. If Ali failed to secure his authority and restore unity, the entire project of the Rashidun Caliphate, the beacon of justice, established by Abu Bakr and Ummah, could disintegrate into rival fiefdoms. The community forged by the Prophet, Muhammad himself, faced dissolution. As Ibn Kathir details in Al-Bidayah wa al-Nihaya, the senior companions in Medina pressed Ali to accept the pledge of allegiance, seeing in him the only figure with the moral weight and capability to steer the ship of state through this storm. He reluctantly accepted, with the primary aim of restoring order and delivering justice for Uthman's murder. But this very act of becoming caliph planted the seeds of the crisis. Two towering companions, Talha ibn Ubayd Allah and Zubayr ibn al-Awwam, who had initially pledged allegiance to Ali in Medina, soon left for Mecca expressing doubts. There they were joined by Aisha, the revered widow of the Prophet, who was returning from the Hajj. Distraught over Uthman's killing and convinced Ali was not moving decisively enough to apprehend the culprits, they mobilized for Basra in Iraq, seeking a base of support to, as they proclaimed, pressure Ali for justice. As al-Tabari reports in his Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Mulak, their force grew as they traveled. Ali, learning of this mobilization, knew he could not let a rival political and military power coalesce. He moved the capital from turbulent Medina to the more strategic Kufa in Iraq and assembled an army. His intention was not war, but reconciliation and the preservation of unity. He marched toward Basra, hoping to persuade Talha and Zubayr to stand down. The two armies met on the outskirts of Basra. The numbers, as meticulously recorded by the classical historians, set the stage for tragedy. Ibn al-Athir states that Ali's army from Kufa numbered approximately 20,000 men. The force of Talha, Zubayr, and Aisha in Basra was roughly comparable, perhaps slightly smaller. For days, Ali engaged in intense, heartfelt diplomacy. He met directly with Talha and Zubayr, reminding them of their earlier oath and the grave sin of breaking it. He sent messengers to Aisha, urging her to return to Medina and avoid the fitna of civil strife. As al-Tabari records, Ali's strategic reasoning was rooted in his deep Islamic ethic. He would exhaust every possible avenue for peace before resorting to the sword against Muslims. He argued that internal discord was a far greater enemy than any external foe. For a time, it seemed his diplomacy might work. Agreements were tentatively reached and tensions lowered. Then the crisis erupted from the shadows. During a tense night of uncertain truce, a skirmish broke out between minor factions from both camps. The exact catalyst is murky in the sources. Al-Tabari presents conflicting accounts, but the result was catastrophic. A single arrow or a sudden clash ignited the tinderbox. The orderly ranks dissolved into a general melee. The Battle of the Camel, named for the fierce fighting that swirled around Aisha's litter mounted on a camel, had begun against Ali's deepest hopes. In the thick of the chaos, Ali faced an impossible choice: to press a military advantage that was now inevitable, or to hold back and risk the complete annihilation of his own forces and the total collapse of his caliphate. He was a warrior without peer, yet here he was, his heart heavy with grief, compelled to fight those he had called brothers. Ibn Kathir describes how Ali gave strict orders to his men. Do not kill those who flee, do not pursue the wounded, do not enter homes, and do not touch the wealth of the Basrans. His target was to end the battle by capturing the camel and thus disheartening the opposing force. The resolution was both a military victory and a profound moral statement. Ali's seasoned Kufan troops, fighting under his direct and disciplined command, gradually gained the upper hand. The pivotal moment came when Ali ordered a focused assault on the camel bearing Aisha's litter. As al-Tabari narrates, once the camel was hamstrung and captured, the battle effectively ended. The forces of Talha and Zubair, now leaderless, both Talha and Zubair had fallen in the fighting laid down their arms. Ali's conduct in victory defined his heroism. He immediately halted the bloodshed. He treated the defeated with magnanimity, providing safe passage for Aisha, whom he respectfully sent back to Medina under an honorable escort led by her own brother. He gathered the wealth of the Basran camp and returned it to its owners. He forbade any celebration of victory, mourning instead the fallen Muslims from both sides. He prayed over the dead collectively, asking God for mercy for all. This was the strategic payoff of his character. Military success was subordinated to the higher goal of healing the community. His mercy, as Ibn Khaldun might analyze, was a calculated political act to restore unity, but it sprang from a genuine, deeply rooted Islamic ethic of forgiveness and reconciliation. But as the dust settled over the plains of Basra and Ali sought to consolidate his rule from Kufa, a far more dangerous and entrenched challenge was solidifying its position over 500 miles to the northwest. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the powerful governor of Syria and a kinsman of the slain Uthman, had refused to pledge allegiance to Ali from the very beginning. He now publicly displayed Uthman's blood-stained shirt and the severed fingers of the caliph's wife, Nayla, in the mosque of Damascus, rallying the Syrian armies under the banner of vengeance. Ali's letters demanding allegiance went unanswered or were met with a counter-demand: hand over Uthman's killers first. The crisis of Basra was over, but it had merely cleared the stage for a greater, more intractable conflict. The unity Ali so desperately sought remained a mirage on the horizon, and the next army marching would not be one he could placate with words or overcome with restrained force. It was an army convinced of its own righteous cause, led by a master political operator who had ruled Syria for 2 decades. The letter from Muawiyah, when it finally came, would not be a plea or a negotiation. It was a declaration of political war. Evntscovid, the election of Ali as Caliph, the mobilization to Basra, the Battle of the Camel. 70,000 spears trembled in the air, their tips glinting under the scorching sun of Basra. The year was 656 AD, and the Muslim world stood at the precipice of a brutal civil war. The stakes could not have been higher. If Ali ibn Abi Talib failed, the unity of the Ummah would shatter, and the blood of Muslims would drench the sands of Arabia. The Battle of the Camel had begun. Ali, the fourth rightly guided caliph, found himself facing an army led by the companions of the Prophet: Arabic Sada, Arabic Lam, Arabic Khalif Muksura, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Lam, Arabic Ha, Arabic Tain, Arabic Lam, Arabic Yet, Arabic Ha, Arabic Wow, Arabic Sin, Arabic Lam, Arabic Meme himself, Aisha, Talha, and Zubair. According to Ibn al-Athir, the rebels had gathered a formidable force of 30,000 men, while Ali commanded an army of 40,000. The numbers alone told a story of division and discord, a rift that threatened to tear the Muslim community apart. Ali's strategic challenge was clear. He needed to neutralize the rebellion without spilling the blood of those who had once fought alongside the Prophet. Arabic Sada, Arabic Lam, Arabic Khalif Muksura, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Lam, Arabic Ha, Arabic Tain, Arabic Lam, Arabic Yet, Arabic Ha, Arabic Wow, Arabic Sin, Arabic Lam, Arabic Meme. The terrain of Basra, with its open plains and scattered palm groves, offered little cover. Ali knew that a direct assault would lead to heavy casualties on both sides. He needed a tactic that would minimize bloodshed while asserting his authority. As al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh, Ali chose to adopt a defensive position entrenched behind a natural barrier, a dried-up riverbed. He positioned his troops in a way that would force the enemy to attack across open ground, making them vulnerable to arrows and cavalry charges. But Ali's true brilliance lay not in his military strategy alone, but in his unwavering commitment to justice and mercy. He sent messengers to the opposing forces, offering amnesty to those who would lay down their arms and return to peace. Yet doubt gnawed at him. According to Ibn al-Athir, Ali paused as scouts reported that the rebels had stationed Aisha, the mother of the believers, on a camel at the front of their army. The sight of her presence galvanized their forces, making them even more determined to fight. Ali's heart heavy, he knew that the battle would test not just his military prowess, but his moral fortitude. The crisis deepened as the rebels, emboldened by their numbers and the presence of Aisha, launched a series of coordinated attacks. Ali's forces held firm, their defensive position proving effective. Arrows rained down, and the clamor of steel rang through the air. But Ali's true victory lay in his restraint. He ordered his men to avoid targeting Aisha directly, ensuring that the battle remained focused on the leaders of the rebellion Talha and Zubair. The resolution came as Ali's tactical brilliance bore fruit. The rebels, exhausted and demoralized by the relentless defensive maneuvers, began to falter. Talha and Zubair were wounded, and their forces started to disperse. According to al-Tabari, Ali's forces captured the rebel leaders, bringing an end to the battle without a complete slaughter. But the victory was bittersweet. As the dust settled, Ali faced the daunting task of reconciling a fractured Ummah. The bloodshed had been minimized, but the divisions ran deep. The letter that arrived that night would change everything. It spoke of new challenges, new threats to the unity of the Muslim world. The road ahead was uncertain, and Ali knew that his greatest battle was yet to come. EVNTSCOVID, the Battle of the Camel, Ali's defensive strategy, capture of Talha and Zubair. The air in Medina grew thick with unspoken dissent. Barely a year into his caliphate, Ali ibn Abi Talib faced a challenge that shook the nascent unity of the Muslim community. The assassination of the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, had plunged the land into turmoil, and now a deep fissure was opening within the leadership itself. 70 days had passed since Ali's ascension, and the wounds of division were festering. The very fabric of the nascent Islamic State was at risk, threatening to unravel the decades of struggle and sacrifice that had brought Islam to its zenith. The source of this growing unrest lay in the city of Mecca and the fertile minds of those who gathered there. Aisha bint Abi Bakr, the Prophet's chaste wife, alongside Talha ibn Ubaydullah and Zubair ibn al-Awwam, prominent companions of the Prophet, found themselves increasingly estranged from Ali's governance. They questioned his methods and his perceived leniency towards the assassins of Uthman. Their discontent was not a minor ripple. It was a growing wave that threatened to engulf the Caliphate. As Ibn Kathir records in al-Bidayah wa al-Nihaya, their concerns were amplified by the prevailing chaos, and they sought to establish a force that would demand justice for Uthman's blood. From Mecca, Aisha, Talha, and Zubair set out towards Basra. Their intention, as understood by many of the time, was to rally support and establish a tribunal to address the grievances stemming from Uthman's murder. Al-Tabari, in his comprehensive Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk, details their journey and the growing number of followers who joined their cause. They believed that Ali's caliphate was illegitimate until the murderers of Uthman were brought to justice, and their movement gained momentum, drawing supporters from various regions. The stakes were immense. If Ali could not appease or overcome this significant opposition, the unity forged under the first three caliphs would shatter, potentially leading to widespread civil war and the collapse of the Islamic State. The journey towards Basra was fraught with tension. Ali, hearing of their movements and the growing opposition, dispatched messengers to reason with them. He understood the gravity of the situation and the potential for bloodshed. His primary objective was to restore peace and unity, not to engage in internecine conflict. Yet his appeals for reconciliation were met with firm resolve. Aisha, Talha, and Zubair, believing their cause was just and divinely sanctioned, saw Ali's attempts as an obstacle to their pursuit of justice. The armies were beginning to form, not yet in open battle, but in a tense standoff. Ali, with his strategic mind, knew that direct confrontation would be disastrous for the entire Muslim polity. He sought to avoid a decisive clash, hoping for a diplomatic solution. As Ali marched towards Basra with his forces, the opposing camps found themselves at the outskirts of the city, near a place known as Al-Karaba. The armies were vast, a testament to the deep divisions within the community. Al-Tabari reports the numbers with grim precision. Ali's army numbered around 20,000 men, while the forces led by Aisha, Talha, and Zubair were estimated to be approximately 30,000 strong. The air crackled with anticipation, the very ground seeming to tremble with the weight of the impending confrontation. Ali, standing before his men, felt the immense burden of leadership. He saw the faces of Muslims arrayed against Muslims, a sight that brought immense sorrow. His strategic reasoning was clear. He needed to assert his authority and prevent further bloodshed, but he was also acutely aware of the devastating consequences of a full-scale battle between these two factions. He dispatched envoys, including his cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas, to attempt a final negotiation. The tension reached its peak on the day that would come to be known as the Battle of the Camel. The negotiations failed. Accounts from Al-Tabari and Ibn al-Athir highlight a moment of profound crisis. Ali, after exhausting all diplomatic avenues, found himself in a desperate situation. The opposing army, led by Aisha, was determined to fight. The strategic challenge was immense. How to quell this rebellion without inflicting catastrophic losses upon the Muslim community, and how to assert his caliphate without appearing to be a tyrant. He knew that a direct assault on Aisha's camp, particularly with her presence, would be seen as a grave act. Yet, allowing the rebellion to continue unchecked would embolden further dissent. He observed the camel ridden by Aisha, a clear rallying point for the rebels, and understood that its removal from the immediate fray was paramount to de-escalating the conflict. With a heavy heart, Ali gave the order for his forces to advance. The battle was fierce and chaotic. As Ibn al-Athir notes in Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the fighting focused intensely around Aisha's camel. Ali's soldiers, under the command of seasoned warriors, fought with discipline, aiming to subdue rather than annihilate. The strategic objective was to break the morale of the opposing forces by disabling their central symbol, the camel, and capturing the key leaders. Despite the ferocity of the engagement, Ali's tactical brilliance and the discipline of his troops began to turn the tide. The camel was eventually wounded, and the rebellion's momentum faltered. Aisha was safely brought to Ali's tent, and Talha and Zubair, seeing the defeat, retreated. The immediate crisis had been averted, but the deeper divisions remained, and the blood spilled on that day would leave an indelible scar. The Battle of the Camel was over, a victory for Ali's Caliphate, but a somber one. Peace had been restored to Basra, and Aisha was treated with respect, being allowed to return to Medina. Yet, as Ali turned his attention to consolidating his authority and addressing the lingering dissent, a new threat was already coalescing in the north. A letter, carried by swift riders, arrived from Damascus, bearing the seal of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the governor of Syria. It spoke not of reconciliation, but of defiance. EVNTSCOVID. The march of Aisha, Talha, and Zubair to Basra, the battle of the Camel, Ali's dispatch of Abdullah ibn Abbas to negotiate. In the month of Safar, in the year 37 after the Hijrah, after weeks of brutal stalemate, over 70,000 men lay dead on the plains of Siffin. The armies of the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and the challenger, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, were locked in a horrific equilibrium of mutual destruction. It was at this moment of utter exhaustion that a single, cunning act on the battlefield sowed the seed for an event that would fracture the political unity of Islam for generations: the arbitration of Adhruh. The survival of the community now hinged not on swords, but on the words of two arbitrators and a torn copy of the Quran. The stakes could not have been higher. Failure to find a peaceful resolution meant the certain annihilation of the finest generation of Muslims, the Sahaba, at each other's hands. The legacy of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was being washed away in the blood of his closest companions and their sons. Beyond the immediate catastrophe, the very legitimacy of the Caliphate and the rule of divine law were in the balance. If force alone decided the outcome, the precedent would be set that power, not piety or consultation, was the ultimate authority in Islam. The community faced either a peace built on shaky, man-made terms, or a victory that would be a hollow, soul-destroying massacre. The strategic challenge was immense and unprecedented. Ali's force, though morally resolute, was weary. As Ibn al-Athir records in al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, Ali's army from Kufa numbered approximately 80,000, while Muawiyah's Syrian army stood at around 70,000. The two giants had clashed for days at Siffin, near the Euphrates, with no clear victor. Then, as al-Tabari details in his Tarikh, Muawiyah's shrewd lieutenant, Amr ibn al-As, devised a masterstroke. He ordered Syrian soldiers to hoist copies of the Quran on their spearheads, crying out, "Let the Book of Allah judge between us." This appeal was a powerful piece of psychological warfare. It did not target Ali, who was himself the living embodiment of the Quran's knowledge, but it targeted his army. A significant faction within Ali's camp, weary of fighting and yearning for God's judgment, pressured him to accept the call to arbitration. Ali understood the ruse. He argued passionately against it, knowing it was a trick by a defeated party. "They are not raising the Quran for the Quran's sake," he warned. "They are raising it as a ploy to save themselves." But the sentiment for peace, inflamed by the sacred symbol, was overwhelming. To maintain the cohesion of his own army and to prevent a mutiny, Ali was forced into a tactical concession he deeply mistrusted. His strategic reasoning was one of painful necessity: preserve the unity of his forces and find a way out of the impasse that did not involve the total slaughter of Muslims. He agreed to a ceasefire and to the appointment of arbitrators. The moment of crisis and profound doubt came with the selection of the arbitrators and the drafting of the treaty. The agreement, as narrated by al-Tabari, stated that the two parties would appoint a trusted man each. These two would then arbitrate based on the Quran and the Sunnah, with a mandate to secure the welfare of the Ummah. Ali's party insisted his representative be the venerable Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, a man known for his piety, but also for his political naivete and his earlier controversial role in the deposition of Uthman. Muawiyah, with cunning precision, appointed Amr ibn al-As, a legendary strategist and a master of realpolitik. Ali sensed disaster. He expressed deep reservations about Abu Musa, preferring the steadfast Malik al-Ashtar or Ibn Abbas. But the same popular pressure that forced him into arbitration now forced this choice upon him. As Ibn Kathir notes in al-Bid'ah wa al-Nihaya, Ali was trapped between his profound understanding of the political game being played and the democratic will of an army that craved an end to war. He signed the document with a heavy heart, a leader bound by the will of his people against his own superior judgment. The treaty contained a fatal ambiguity. It referred to the disputing parties as the party of Ali and the party of Muawiyah, a phrasing Muawiyah would later exploit to argue it did not recognize Ali's title as commander of the faithful. The resolution of the arbitration was a strategic disaster for Ali's cause, precisely as he had feared. The two arbitrators met in the neutral town of Adhruh, midway between Iraq and Syria, in Ramadan of 37 AH. The process unfolded not as a divine judgment, but as a political negotiation. After lengthy discussions, Abu Musa and Amr agreed on a devastating formula. Both Ali and Muawiyah would be deposed, and a new caliph would be chosen by a council. The public announcement was to be a staged event. Abu Musa would go first and announce the deposition of both men. Then Amr would follow and confirm it. As al-Tabari records the pivotal moment, Abu Musa ascended the pulpit and declared, "We have agreed to depose Ali and Muawiyah. Let the people choose for themselves a leader." Then Amr ibn al-As took his place. He said, "You have heard what Abu Musa said. He has deposed his man. And I depose his man also, but I confirm my man Muawiyah, for he is the avenger of Uthman, the rightful claimant and the most deserving." The crowd erupted. Abu Musa had been utterly outmaneuvered. He cried out, "He has deceived you. This man is treacherous," but the damage was done. The arbitration, intended to bring peace, had instead provided Muawiyah with a public platform to legitimize his rebellion and frame it as a quest for justice for Uthman. For Ali, the outcome was a bitter vindication of his initial warnings. Peace had not been achieved, Muawiyah's position was strengthened, and Ali's authority was publicly undermined. As Ali returned to Kufa, the political fallout was immediate and severe. A large segment of his most devout supporters, those who had originally pushed for arbitration in the name of God's law, now felt betrayed. They argued that by agreeing to let men arbitrate in a matter of legitimate leadership, a matter they believed God had already decided through the Pledge of Allegiance at Medina, Ali had committed a grave error, effectively putting divine judgment to a human vote. They turned on him with the same fervor with which they had once supported him. But the letter that arrived from the frontiers of his own realm would reveal an even more immediate and violent threat. These disillusioned supporters were not just criticizing, they were mobilizing. They had chosen a new name for themselves, the Kharijites, those who went out, and they were not merely protesting. At a place called Harura, near Kufa, they were gathering in armed camps, declaring that Ali, Muawiyah, Ammar, and Abu Musa were all unbelievers for deviating from the true path. Their slogan was chillingly simple: no judgment but God's. They were no longer his troubled followers. They were now his most fanatical enemies, and they were preparing to judge him with their swords. EVNTSCOVID, Battle of Siffin ceasefire, arbitration of Adhruh, emergence of the Kharijites at Harura. With 80,000 men under his command, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan stood at the banks of the Euphrates, facing the forces of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The stakes were clear. The unity of the Muslim Ummah hung in the balance. As al-Tabari recorded in his Tarikh al-Rusul wa al-Muluk, Muawiyah had gathered an army of 80,000, while Ali's forces numbered 70,000. The stage was set for one of the most pivotal battles in Islamic history, the Battle of Siffin. The conflict had been brewing for years, a volatile mix of political dissent and ideological differences. Muawiyah, the governor of Syria, sought to challenge Ali's caliphate, citing grievances over the assassination of Uthman ibn Affan and the need for justice. Ali, the fourth rightly guided caliph, stood firm in his belief that he was divinely appointed to lead the Muslim community. The failure of either side would plunge the Ummah into deeper schism, threatening the very fabric of Islamic unity. Ali chose the plains of Siffin, near the Euphrates River, as the battleground. The terrain was vast and open, ideal for large-scale combat. His strategic reasoning was clear: to neutralize Muawiyah's numerical advantage by leveraging the mobility and discipline of his own forces. Ali's army was composed of elite warriors from Kufa and Basra, seasoned fighters who had proven their mettle in numerous battles. Muawiyah's army, though larger, was a mix of Syrians and allies from other regions, united more by loyalty to Muawiyah than by a common cause. The battle began with skirmishes and raids, as both sides tested each other's strength. As Ibn al-Athir notes in al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh, the initial engagements were fierce, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. The Euphrates River served as a natural barrier, its waters reflecting the blood of the fallen. The terrain, though open, was not without its challenges. The heat of the day and the cold of the night took their toll on the soldiers, adding to the physical and mental strain of the conflict. According to al-Tabari, Ali paused. The scouts reported that Muawiyah's forces were preparing a major offensive, aiming to exploit any weakness in Ali's lines. The weight of the decision pressed heavily on Ali. He knew that a direct confrontation could lead to massive casualties, but retreating would embolden Muawiyah and undermine his authority. In a moment of deep reflection, Ali turned to the Quran for guidance. He recalled the words of the Prophet Muhammad, who had emphasized the importance of justice and mercy even in the heat of battle. Ali's resolve strengthened. He decided to engage Muawiyah's forces head-on, but with a strategic twist. He ordered his men to raise copies of the Quran on their spears, signaling a desire for arbitration and peace. This move was not a sign of weakness, but a testament to Ali's unwavering commitment to the principles of Islam. As Ibn Khaldun explains in Al-Muqaddimah, Ali's tactic was a masterstroke of psychological warfare. It forced Muawiyah's men to question the legitimacy of their cause, as the Quran was the ultimate symbol of divine truth. The effect was immediate. Muawiyah's forces hesitated, their morale wavering. The sight of the Quranic verses on the spears of their enemies struck a deep chord within them. Many of Muawiyah's soldiers were devout Muslims, and the spectacle of the Quran being used as a shield against their arrows was a powerful reminder of their shared faith. As Ibn al-Athir recorded, the battle ground to a halt, and the two sides agreed to a truce for arbitration. The arbitration process was fraught with challenges. Both sides struggled to agree on the terms and the arbiters. However, the mere fact that the battle had been halted was a testament to Ali's strategic brilliance. He had turned the tide of battle not through brute force, but through a profound understanding of the hearts and minds of his enemies. The Quranic Gambit had succeeded where swords had failed. But the letter that arrived that night would change everything. It contained news that would test Ali's leadership and the unity of the Ummah in ways no one could have foreseen. EVNTSCOVID, Battle of Siffin, Quranic Gambit, Arbitration Process. The Caliphate teetered. In the year 38 of the Hijrah, a force numbering 10,000 men, once loyal soldiers of the faithful, had turned their faces against Ali ibn Abi Talib. These were the Qurra, who had sworn allegiance, yet now they declared Ali an unbeliever, their swords aimed at the heart of the Islamic State. Their dissent, born from the arbitration after the Battle of Siffin, had coalesced into a dangerous heresy, threatening to fracture the nascent community. Their pronouncement that judgment belongs to God alone became their rallying cry, a perversion of sacred words that now demanded Ali's decisive action. The stakes were immense. If Ali failed to quell this rebellion, the very foundation of Islam, built on unity and obedience to rightful leadership, would crumble. These Kharijites, as they came to be known, were not merely a disaffected group. They represented a potent ideological threat. Their rigid interpretation of scripture, devoid of context and human understanding, could plunge the Muslim world back into chaos and division, undoing the years of struggle and sacrifice. The unity forged under the Prophet Muhammad and the early caliphs was at risk of shattering, with far-reaching consequences for the propagation of Islam itself. The Kharijites, emboldened by their numbers and their fervent conviction, had positioned themselves near Nahrawan, a strategic location on the Tigris River, east of Baghdad. They had issued their ultimatums, their demands echoing with a dangerous certainty. Ali, realizing the gravity of the situation, gathered his forces. The accounts from our historians indicate that Ali's army numbered around 60,000 men, a significant force, but one facing an enemy driven by a fanatical zeal that often belied their numbers. Ali's strategic reasoning was clear. A swift and decisive victory was paramount. Prolonging the conflict would only embolden the Kharijites and potentially draw further dissenters to their cause. He needed to demonstrate that such radical interpretations, leading to rebellion against legitimate authority, would not be tolerated. The choice was between a prolonged, divisive campaign or a focused, decisive engagement to restore order. Ali dispatched messengers, seeking to reason with the Kharijites, to offer them a chance to recant their extreme views and return to the fold of the community. He appealed to their shared history, their common faith, and the wisdom of accepting the outcome of arbitration, even if it was not to their immediate liking. He sought to remind them of the Prophet's Arabic Sada, Arabic Lam, Arabic Alif Muksura, Arabic Alif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Lam, Arabic Ha, Arabic Tain, Arabic Lam, Arabic Yet, Arabic Ha, Arabic Wow, Arabic Sin, Arabic Lam, Arabic Meme, teachings on unity and obedience. However, the Kharijites, entrenched in their conviction, refused all overtures. They had already killed innocent travelers, further hardening Ali's resolve. As al-Tabari records in his Tarikh, Ali knew that negotiation had failed and that the sword was now the only recourse to protect the integrity of the Muslim state. The Battle of Nahrawan commenced. Ali's forces, though larger, faced a determined and desperate enemy. The Kharijites, fighting with the fury of the condemned, inflicted casualties on Ali's army. Yet the disciplined ranks of Ali's soldiers, fighting under his strategic direction, began to press their advantage. The tactical brilliance of Ali, combined with the unwavering loyalty of his men, began to turn the tide. Ibn al-Athir notes that Ali ordered his men to target the Kharijites' banners, a tactic designed to sow disarray and break their unified front. The fighting was fierce, marked by the desperate courage of the Kharijites and the strategic prowess of Ali's command. Despite the overwhelming victory for Ali, the seeds of future discord had been sown. The Kharijites, though decimated at Nahrawan, were not entirely extinguished. Their ideology, a dangerous blend of religious extremism and political dissent, had proven its resilience. As the dust settled on the battlefield, a chilling prophecy began to circulate, a foreboding whisper of what was to come. Ibn Kathir, in his al-Bidayah wa al-Nihaya, recounts the grim words of Ali himself, who, after the battle, spoke of the Kharijites' eventual resurgence, stating that a remnant would remain, emerging from the populace, their hearts harboring the same venom. This victory, while securing the Caliphate for a time, opened a new, unsettling chapter in the history of the Islamic community, one where a persistent, insidious threat would continue to fester, waiting for its moment. EVNTSCOVID, Battle of Nahrawan, Kharijite Rebellion.